Hello and welcome to the two-man power trip of wrestling alongside Hannibal TV. I am JP John Paz, and of course, with me is Devin Nicholson, aka Hannibal, aka Hannibal TV. Devin, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing excellent. It's actually above zero today here in Ottawa, Canada,
Damn.
which is always a good time to get out there and run. So I'm gonna hit the pavement after this.
Nice. I was bitching to my wife today that it was like 30 degrees. Damn, zero.
Oh
Holy
yeah,
crap.
it gets pretty brutal here. But at least I don't have COVID like we read today. We were just discussing that Drew McIntyre, who's very popular on my channel, apparently has COVID along with Les Thatcher. So I know Les Thatcher's getting up there in age. Very sorry to hear about that. I'm sure WWE will get Drew on whatever treatment they've been giving everyone else, because I heard the Observer say there's something like 150 WWE personnel overall since the beginning of this that have had it.
Yeah, I'm kind of like getting a little worried here with all those WWE things. Like, you got Ric Flair showing up at the show. He's 71. It might be a little bit dangerous to have Flair around and all these other legends around. And if McIntyre had it, who had some contact with Flair, that's definitely not good. I know McIntyre said he had no symptoms either, so that's kind of like scary. So he had it, was tested, but didn't even know he had it. So who knows where he went, who he touched, or who he was around, and who knows if he got anybody sick or not, which hopefully he didn't, but the risk is definitely out there for sure.
Yeah, Flair also has the previous conditions. I remember a few years ago, didn't he almost die in the hospital?
Yep. Yeah, he was really bad.
Someone's missing my dog. She's downstairs. Sorry. She appeared yesterday, I believe, in the podcast I did with Andrew Anderson.
Oh, nice. My cat she literally is down here somewhere. She's trying to pop up. She always tries to pop up and get involved. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. I remember once I was talking to Stevie Richard, but he loves cats, so he loved it that the cat was sitting here. Other people are probably like, what is this schmo doing? Letting his cat get involved in his podcast and in his YouTube shows.
Yeah, Stevie Richards. I've been doing the DDP yoga since I interviewed him.
Oh,
I was
nice.
surprised to notice that Stevie Richard, he does some of the classes on there, and he's actually good for taking a break from DDP, because after 3 or 4 days in a row of listening to DDP, you kind of want to go for someone else. So I've never been a huge fan of him, but I do like his yoga class. So.
Oh, you were never a big fan. I was always a huge fan of DDP. I mean, back in the day.
Oh, I meant Stevie Richards.
Oh, Stevie. Oh, okay. I was going to say DDP. I was just, you got to be a fan of DDP. Stevie, yeah. Stevie is, I don't know. For some reason, I always liked him because he was always like I don't know, not the joke, but he would never really take himself too seriously, or he would never, the dancing Stevie or be Raven's disciple. I always kind of liked that because I was like, all right, this guy's funny. He doesn't take himself too seriously. The BWO, he's doing the big Stevie cool thing. I always kind of liked him, but definitely one of those underrated guys where he stuck around forever. He was a good wrestler, but he kind of stuck around, was able to really kind of go WCW, ECW, WWF, back to WWE. He kind of hung around for a long time.
DDP, I'm one of the rare ones, and I was like this with Triple H too, who returned tonight. I liked DDP before everyone else liked him when he was that heel character.
Yeah.
WCW, and Triple H, strangely enough, I was the biggest fan of him when he was Jean-Paul Levesque in WCW, because for whatever reason, maybe I saw talent in him early, but that was the peak of my Triple H fandom, and it slowly went down from there.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah. I don't know. For some reason now, I don't mind him as much just because I think he's better than most of the current guys. I don't know if I'm crazy on that or not, but I feel like back in the day, he doesn't match up to Austin or The Rock at all, or Undertaker, those guys. But nowadays, you got, I don't know, the Seth Rollins of the world, I'm not really that high on, and some of these other guys. So it's like Triple H kind of jumps the line and jumps the ladder just because, I don't know, he's better than the current guys. He knows how to tell a story. He could actually work a little bit. He's not doing flip-flop fly crap. So I don't know, I kind of like him better than a lot of the current wrestlers.
The one thing that I really didn't like about Triple H from recent years is Of course, I wrestled Jinder Mahal many times on the Stampede circuit, and he wrestled for Great North Wrestling. And they were giving Mahal this huge push, and he was getting over. The ratings when he was champion are way better than they are now. But they had that big India show, and Triple H beats Mahal on the India show. And I don't know, that just really angered me about Triple H because, yes, you shook his hand after, but you couldn't give him the win there.
I know, that made no sense whatsoever. Like, you really killed a country. Like you could have been there a lot more often, but he completely killed it by beating him. That was just like, why do you need the win? It's like him beating Sting. I hated it at WrestleMania. It was one of those things like, did he really need that? Him beating Undertaker in their last ever match. Did he really need that? I don't know. I feel like he always kind of should be on the losing end of a lot of matches that he ends up winning. And I mean, that's his MO, really. You know, the burials and the beating guys he shouldn't beat.
I agree. And the reason we're doing this stream, by the way, for the fans that want to know why it's Two-Man Power Trip on the Hannibal TV, is because John is the producer for Rick Bassman's Talking Tough podcast. And we had a streaming issue last week for the DDP and Boss Rutan live interview, which we did end up getting. It just wasn't live on the Hannibal TV. So coming up tomorrow, they're doing a Talking Tough with Chavo Guerrero and Guy Mesger from the UFC. So we want to test this out to make sure it streams on all platforms before we bring the Chavo Guerreros of the world on. And it seems to be working. We're getting the comments on the Hannibal TV. Got
to mention from the virtual basement. Hi, John. Small world. We just emailed each other about King Kong Bundy. LOL. Yes, we were just talking about King Kong Bundy about a week ago. So I got to get back to you on that email for sure about getting in touch with King Kong Bundy's son and his daughter-in-law, because I think that they would love for him to be in this game. I don't know if you've seen this virtual basement game or not, but they would want, I think, King Kong Bundy in it for sure, but obviously just get the go ahead from them. But I'll make sure to get you guys in contact with each other.
They actually asked me to be in that game as well. I just haven't gotten around to taking the pictures for them.
So okay, cool. Awesome.
I don't think it's coming out for a while, so I'm pretty sure I still have time. Can you check if you also clicked for this to stream on the Hannibal TV Facebook page, and if not, just add it just so I can see if it works?
For some reason, it says StreamYard has lost access to this Facebook account about Hannibal TV. So that might be one of those things where, I don't know if you remember this, but Facebook cuts it off after a certain period of time now. I don't know why. It's like 4 hours or something, and boom, they'll cut it off just like that. We literally just learned about that the hard way, and that's why it wasn't streaming on Boss Rutan's. His guy sent it to us, I think it was 8 hours in advance. We thought like, oh, we're smart or something, or we're cool, we're getting it in advance. That didn't work. So DDP ended up sending us 1 hour in advance, and it worked, and the whole stream was perfect. And that's why we had a nice little jump from the DDP page. But that's why it didn't go through with Boss Rutan. Bliss Strong, hey, bros. I got a question here, Hannibal. You're not going to like this answer, by the way. So close your ears. Two-Man Power Trip. Who is your next WWF guest this month? Abdullah the Butcher. I know you're not going to like that one, but we did get Abdullah on.
Oh, I actually don't mind that because all of his assets are frozen right now, along with his wife, and he's in a lot of trouble. He's going to have a miserable end of his life. So it's actually funny. He and his ex-wife don't actually get along at all. She lives in the big house that they own together, and he lives in the smaller one, and he lives with another woman.
Yeah, she said it's she's his nurse. That's what she told me. But I don't know if it's his girlfriend or his nurse. He's 80, I think 80 years old. He just turned today.
Yeah, it's his,
so it could be his nurse.
What was his nurse's name? I'll be able to tell you.
I don't remember. I don't remember offhand.
Yeah, he basically there's a whole bunch of people involved in a second lawsuit right now related to fraudulent transfers of properties he made in relation to getting out of paying me the judgment, because there was that 2-year delay between winning in Canada and getting it endorsed in the US. So in that time, which is actually illegal to do, he transferred assets to people, including this new woman that he's living with now. So she's also in a lot of trouble. His whole, whole crew is. So just a total scumbag to not be man enough to like pay the judgment against him or even attempt to make any payments whatsoever. But that's the way he is. I shouldn't have expected him to be not shady. But the shocking thing about that whole case is, one thing I learned is it's actually very difficult to make people pay judgments. It's not
really.
You actually have to pay more to keep things going. So it's not to the benefit of victims. So yeah, people always say, oh, sue this person for saying this thing about you, sue that person. Is like, lawsuits cost a hell of a lot of money and chances of collection are slim. So I don't know how many of these people, Joey Ryan, for instance, is attempting to sue, but he's going to spend a fortune. He's going to have a very difficult time proving any losses in his case. And he'll be lucky to collect anything, because I don't think he's suing anyone that really has any money.
Yeah. So, I saw some of them were doing GoFundMe accounts, like to just try to get a lawyer basically to fight it. So it seemed like he was going against the wrong people for sure.
Yeah. And if you don't have money, it's very difficult to make people pay. And like, he would still have to win and prove damages, which is, I think we discussed last time. There's hardly any wrestling running right now. Basically Florida and Texas. So you can't say you have this lost income when everything's shut down. So it's very difficult to prove. You're not getting booked in Texas for this reason, when really, how often was he booked in Texas? Probably just here and there before, like everybody else.
True. Mike D, Steven Richards, Hall of Fame, right to censor. Good buddy, Philip Wood. Hi, John and Devin. Hannibal Nicholson, you are both legends. Thank you. All right, nice. Let's see what Tony's got to say.
Top interviewers today. I wouldn't put anyone else in our category, other than, of course, people that are signed to the big companies like Jim Ross. But there's a lot of people signed to the big companies that I wouldn't put in my category either.
I agree. I remember DDP back in the days of AWA from Tony Del Monte. See what James has to say. Yo, boys. Nice. I believe I answered this one already from... Yes, it was about who we got going on next.
One of our common guests, Evan Marriott from Joe Millionaire, messaged me that he'd seen your interview with Arn Anderson, because I guess he's a big Arn Anderson fan.
Yes.
And he said, Hannibal, when are you going to do one? So I don't know if he would do one with me, but yours was very well received. And people can check that out on the Hannibal TV. They did a live auction with Arn Anderson, and John did a very good job of sneaking questions in during that auction. So I suggest we put that up.
Yep, awesome time with him. Arn is great. I don't know if he does many other interviews and stuff, but if he does, I mean, he definitely should do one with you. I think it would be awesome for your channel. Mike D, we need another Bill Apter. Bill Apter Part 2. I know you just had Bill Apter on. How was he?
He was good, and I agree. He was actually bombarded with questions. I maybe only asked about 5% of the fan questions. He received more fan questions than some of the larger actual wrestler name guests have. So I was impressed by that. Bill is a really nice guy. He agreed with me that there's not enough kayfabe in today's product. He thinks that kind of hurts the product a little bit, that they kind of let the cat out of the bag. As much as I liked that Brody Lee tribute, they really had no kayfabe on that. And I don't know if that's going to hurt them in the long run or not. But one thing's for sure, AEW did a good job of honoring Brody Lee with all they did for that.
Yes, definitely. Mike D, again, just want to throw this out there. Please get Virgil on. He would be good for the viewers. Are you going to get Virgil on?
From what you might know Virgil better than me. From what I've been told from, I think Nicholas Massey from Captain's Corner. He
Mhm.
said Virgil does not own a cell phone, and the only way to get, or he doesn't own a computer either, apparently, and the only way to get an interview with him would be during a time where he's doing one of these virtual signings or with someone where he could use their online streaming device, because for whatever reason, I know he made decent money in wrestling. It came out that he was making like, I think, 150 grand a year in WCW. I know Bischoff addressed it. So I don't know where his money went or if he's just too cheap to get a phone, but I'll work on Virgil if the opportunity arises.
Yeah, that is weird. I've worked with him before, and he did not have a cell phone, and he was using one of those prepaid flip phones, I guess, in case somebody needed to like get in touch with him and stuff. This was a couple years ago, so it was really strange. But Joe Dombrowski did an interview at his house and showed his apartment or house, whatever it is, and he's not like living badly. I mean, he seems like he's doing okay. So maybe he just doesn't want the technology, or he's hiding out from somebody. I don't know. It's weird that he won't kind of update himself, but it seems like he's doing okay. And he was actually getting a lot of real wrestling bookies. For a while he was showing up, the Lonely Virgil thing, and he was showing up just basically setting up shop and selling autographs. Well, for a couple of years, he's actually been being booked like quite solidly. So it's one of those things where he definitely could get a phone, and I know he doesn't. It was because it was really weird, because we've interviewed him before. It was really weird. We had to like keep calling this prepaid phone.
Very strange indeed. And he's one of the guys that apparently, I know Lanny did this in Memphis too, but I guess he actually got fired from Memphis, according to numerous people, for doing that autofellatio thing in the dressing room there. Jerry Jarrett didn't approve of that little party trick, which I still couldn't imagine that. All the dressing rooms I've been in, everybody gather around. Look what Virgil can do. Virgil,
Yeah.
get yourself hard and let's all watch.
Yeah, it's crazy. Jack Bush, how awesome was Mike Awesome? Have you ever wrestled him? Back in the day?
I never wrestled him. I never met him. I don't know when he passed. I know Billy Jack Haynes had a complicated conspiracy theory related to Mike Awesome's passing. He believed that it had to do with he believed he was killed, but I won't get into the details on why he thinks he was killed. But he had some good matches. Definitely.
Absolutely. His feud with Masato Tanaka in ECW is awesome. If anybody can get a hold of like those matches or watch them back, that feud is awesome. They rarely had a bad match, and all matches I would say were excellent. Tanaka underrated as hell. Mike Awesome was pretty damn good in his prime.
Seeing that Hammerstein ballroom crowd, how hot they were.
Yep.
This reminds me, it was like that for One Night Stand too, but just reminds me of, I don't see crowds that hot anymore or that crammed in, where you always know that the arena's half empty or more than half empty these days, because you don't get those big crowd shots like you'd see in the 90s with every fan with signs and just going nuts for everything.
From Ibsen Arroyo, how's Billy Graham's health as of today? Do you know?
Well, let me check. I know he posted something yesterday. I talked to him last week where it looked like he was going to have to get his toe amputated.
Oh man.
Yeah, no, he has to get his toe amputated due to diabetes. He has a GoFundMe going. He did make a post today, but yesterday, he says he just got home from the hospital and he's going to give a brief update. He says, acute osteolytis on my leg, my left big toe. There's an infection of the bone. In most cases, a type of staph bacteria known as osteolytis. Certain chronic conditions like diabetes increase your risk of this, which he has. His hospital time was well spent. He was in there on a 24-hour IV antibiotic. He's at home now soaking his foot in warm water. He posted some photos for anyone who wants to go on his Facebook. And I guess he's going to be having surgery to get that toe removed before the infection spread. And he says anything is GoFundMe would help, even as little as $5. So
Okay.
he just has one issue after another. He's one of the toughest people I've ever known, just for all of the medical issues he's had. He actually overcame Hep C. He's actually defeated it now. I understand X-Pac has recently too, but he's had heart problems, diabetes, skin cancer. He recently, I don't know if you saw the pictures, but had a nose removed. But he does not give up. And when I talked to him recently, he said, I'm just used to it by now. He said, it's just another day at the office for me. Where some people would have given up, but he doesn't have that in his mind. He just keeps pushing forward, and his wife takes good care of him, keeping an eye on these medical conditions for him as well, Valerie. So there's your update, sir.
As far as superstar Billy Graham, I love Bob Backlund, but I felt like he should have turned face after he beat Bruno, and he would have been the face of the company, leading into like the Hulk Hogan era. But obviously that did not happen, and Backlund was the champ. Here's another one for Mr. Arroyo.
Agrees with you, by the way. Just to plug your Taskmaster Talks shirt, it still bothers Kevin. Why didn't they have Ivan Koloff turn on Superstar? The fans wanted it. Billy was ready, but McMahon, for whatever reason, didn't. And Kevin has gone back and looked at those Backlund cards, and you can see they're stacked. If you look at the undercard, where Billy Graham didn't need that heavily stacked undercard.
Yeah, he just needed him in the main event.
But there's no doubt Backlund was over. But as you can watch those in-ring Madison Square Garden promos with Billy Graham, and you can feel the electricity in the air. You can see fans cheering him, booing him. Stuff is being thrown all over the place to the audience. It's amazing to see, and I don't know if we'll ever have that again unless Donald Trump starts wrestling, because I think he could be the greatest heel of all time if he gets in the ring.
I totally agree. Mr. Arroyo, one more time. Any chance either of you interview Eric Rowan? I'm definitely going to try. I didn't say that much. I'm going to reach out to him for sure.
I believe that at one point last year, UWN was going to hook us up, but he said he wanted to get his new character, Eric Redbeard, over before he did interviews. But since then, he's gone to AEW. I believe they signed him now. So who knows? John is probably more likely to get him than me, because I know he has a better relationship with AEW than I do.
This is going to be just a comedic one from Liam Savage. John Paz, the Kermit the Frog of wrestling podcaster. I just got to put that up. I love when, I don't know, I have a sick sense of humor. I love when people make fun of me. But
the thing is, I thought Disco Inferno was the Kermit the Frog of wrestling podcasters. I thought
yes.
I would say you can't take that away from Disco.
Actually, it's an inside joke with me and a buddy of mine. He always calls me Kermit. I always call him Michigan J Frog. But that's just neither here nor there. But
my dog's knocking at my door.
Nice. The Ragu Overlord, the Sting Triple H match. Yes, I agree. It's Sting Triple H WrestleMania. Not good. The finish was terrible. Oh, there she is.
Yeah,
nice.
There you go, Mike, if you're still on there. She came to the door to say hello.
I just missed something from Dale Young. Let's see. Where was I here? Where is Dale? Dale said something here. Damn it, did I miss it? Nope, there's Dale. Dale Young, hey guys, what's up?
I just interviewed Dale Wolf. That was a very well-received interview where he talked about he was the guy in charge of taking care of Zeus behind the scenes. And
I didn't know
Zeus belongs in the WWE Hall of Fame more than any other celebrity that hasn't been inducted already, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm surprised he didn't go in. I mean, he's such a big name and did so much more than a lot of the other celebrities. I mean, Drew Carey. I mean, Jesus Christ, the Fridge. I mean, I don't know. I would have put Zeus in there for sure. But
Carey only in one Battle Royal.
Yeah, pretty much. Yep. Dusty, aka Dale Wolf, was a great enhancement guy too, and was good in World Class. So he's been everywhere.
He brought up the point that they actually created another pay-per-view for Zeus for that cage match too. So it was like he was so over that another pay-per-view was created just for him, and he did main event SummerSlam '89, as well as the Survivor Series. I believe there was talk of him also headlining WrestleMania 6, but according to what Zeus said, the money just wasn't there for him, and he was making a lot in Hollywood. So that's why there was never really a blow-off, because you'd think that they would have at least had a blow-off match with him and Hogan, but they never did. It was always tag team stuff.
Wasn't it No Hold Barred the match and No Holds Barred the movie? They had their one-on-one match.
No, it was Beefcake and Hogan against Zeus and Macho Man in the cage. They did have the one-on-one match in the movie.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Right. Yeah, right.
I don't know if Zeus, he may have had some enhancement matches. I don't even know if he ever had a one-on-one match other than with Abdullah, your buddy there. But you should ask Abdullah actually about that match with Zeus if he remembers it.
True. James Cullen saying Papa Shango, who I've interviewed for. Have you interviewed him? I feel like you did.
I did. I interviewed him at Cheetahs in Las Vegas, where he works, where everyone was asking why he was so happy. He smoked a joint before he did the interview and took a shot of whiskey.
Nice.
Himself in the mood. He seems like a very happy guy. Some people might find this strange, but Papa Shango was actually my favorite character that he played.
Over the Godfather.
Yes. I remember when they brought him back as Kama, there had been rumors that he was, I don't know if you heard this or remember it from back then, but there was rumors that he was going to be the guy that put the spell on Bob Backlund to make Backlund go crazy, and they were going to do an angle like that.
Yep.
And I remember reading about that in the newspaper because there was a column that talked about the behind the scenes a little bit. And I was so excited for Papa Shango to return because he was one of my favorites. And lo and behold, we got my least favorite version of him, Kama Mustafa.
Yep. And right before that, the Supreme Fighting Machine, Kama,
yes,
with Undertaker.
Yeah, they did they went around the loop doing casket matches. I think I remember seeing them on a house show in a casket match. He feuded with him as Shango and as Kama.
Yep. And he burnt the urn. He made a necklace out of gold out of the urn.
I interviewed I forget why his name is leaving me right now, but the Candyman from Memphis recently, and he said they took the pimp idea from him. I can look up because I know he messaged me recently why his name is not getting into my head right now.
Ray Candy, the Candyman?
No, he had a pimp gimmick where it's going to I'm going to see his email here. Reggie B. Fine with a PH.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I believe he actually is telling the truth there that he was the very first pimp in wrestling, and he says he was a real pimp.
Oh, wow. I remember him pretty well. Yeah, Reggie B. Fine.
I'll address something with you right now because I had a lot of fans comment on it, and I didn't address it on camera yet. But there was a video of someone talking about Mel Phillips the other day, an encounter he had with Mel Phillips when he was a child, that a guy I interviewed that is an old Canadian wrestling announcer, and he went on to be a successful voice actor. He played a lot of famous voices over the years, but he was telling me a story that Mel Phillips tried to befriend him, I guess you could say, when he was a young boy, and his mother kind of put a stop to it before it went any further. But a bunch of people in the comments, and some people even messaged me about this. Oh, Terry Funk sure taught Mel Phillips a lesson. That was not a work. That was a shoot. No, guys, I hate to disappoint you, but I actually went back and rewatched it, and the incident with Terry Funk and Mel Phillips, I believe, was just designed to get Funk over more before his Hulk Hogan feud. I don't know if you remember it, John, but it didn't look like a shoot.
Seems like a work to me. It doesn't seem like a shoot.
Phillips selling it. Like if you're legitimately getting kicked, you're not going to be like begging off to the sky.
Yeah. Yep.
You're going to get the hell out of the ring. But Terry Funk making his SWE
Yes.
debut, February 27th. And could you think of a better matchmaking team than Teddy Long, the Taskmaster, Kevin Sullivan, Terry Funk now on the matchmaking team, and James Beard, the referee, the only referee to my knowledge that would actually be flown over to Japan. And he worked closely over the years with guys like Bruiser Brody and the Von Erichs. So really great old school matchmaking team they have there.
That is awesome. And I'm sure Kevin had to talk Terry Funk into doing it, but that's awesome that Funk is kind of coming back again after I thought he did his last show. That's awesome. Lucky for those fans down there in Texas.
Yeah, and it's supposedly it's going to be ongoing. So I really hope. And as I was talking to Kevin last night, actually, if you really look at the star power that SWE Fury has and compare it to Ring of Honor, MLW, and NWA, they actually have more stars now, if you actually look at their regular wrestlers, than any of those three companies. And SWE isn't in those conversations yet, but they should be. They're on TV in over 33 million homes. Starting today, they started posting their new TV episodes on the SWE Fury YouTube channel. So I suggest fans subscribe to there. I'm doing interviews for there too. And there's an SWE Fury app that people can get now as well. So I think if COVID ever ends, it's kind of putting a little bit of a halt on their growth because they can't have as big crowds that they really need to help profit, considering all these stars that are coming in. But if COVID goes away and they can fight through COVID, which they've been doing, I think there can be a lot of potential with them.
Yeah, they always bring in big names. Charlie Haas is there. Lance Archer is there. Mark Henry shows up all the time. I mean, so they're definitely bringing names. Obviously, Kevin Sullivan, Terry Funk,
Shaul Guerrero.
Yep.
Miranda
Blood Hunter.
Lacey, Blood. Who can forget the Blood Hunter, now managed by Selena De La Renta in SWE Fury. So we're seeing some crossover. Just Incredible, your buddy, is wrestling him on the next event. So why not plug that event, actually February 6th in Irving, Texas, but let's plug the podcast you do with Credible. At least maybe there won't be any after that match with the Blood Hunter, but I saw Credible's promo and he says he's going into that to show he can still go. So it'll be interesting.
I was just talking about that on Pro Wrestling 101 over on the Realm Network, a part of Vince Russo's The Brand. He was just saying that he's really taking this very seriously. He hasn't taken a match seriously, really hasn't had a real match, he said, in a while, but this is the first one he's actually taking seriously in years. So he's really kind of pumped and excited, and he seems to me, could call me crazy, but he might be a little scared too. So it's going to be an interesting one. And when he gets scared, you get backed in that corner, he might just go crazy. So
I think heard many MMA fighters say when the fear goes, it really can actually diminish your fighting ability. And you actually can fight better with that fear.
Yes. Yep. For sure.
Lots of great talents, including Tim Storm, former NWA champion, Crimson, and Jax Dane. Jax Dane, everyone forgets, but he was also a former NWA champion, and Rodney Max, the TV champion there right now. So great stuff. And all of their female wrestlers seem to be being used on AEW Dark in recent months. So
yeah, great. They got a pretty good women's division, really good. Christy James is good. Yeah, the Vert Vixen is good. There's another girl too. I forget her name. Is it? Maddie Rankowski's good. They got a bunch of good wrestlers, bunch of good female wrestlers for sure.
There's a young one too, and her name is slipping me right now.
Jasmine Allure, I feel like.
Yes, Jasmine Allure. She's only been wrestling a year.
Oh, that's it. She's pretty good then. I mean, really good for that.
She's feisty. I like her attitude as far as she's not intimidated being green, but she also wrestles like she's not green. And maybe that has to do with Jazz is actually head of their women's division now. So
that's definitely why that they're advanced for how young they are, because she's definitely helping them along.
They picked up Melina too. How could I forget? She's going to be at the February 27th event. And there was all this talk last year that Melina was getting re-signed by WWE. I don't know what happened there, but I feel bad that that didn't happen because I've interviewed her a few times and she was one of my favorites. So maybe she'll prove herself again in SWE. And
She
even
must be.
He-Man's going to be around.
She must be in good standing. She was on Raw last week for the Legends. She was considered a legend, but she must be in good standing that she was invited to the show. I'm just thinking maybe, hopefully, something happens there.
Speaking of kayfabe, I don't know what you thought of this, but there was a picture out there. The manager of AJ Styles, that tall guy, was somehow in a backstage picture with all the legends, and it's like, are you not supposed to be a heel? And why are you in this picture? I don't even think you're trained fully, which is why he's not getting matches. And he's just thrown in the picture, smiling, all happy with all the legends. I don't know.
Yeah, I thought that was funny too. I was like, okay, I guess kayfabe is like a completely dead for this guy. Yeah, Amos. He was with Mark Henry and all those guys. That was funny. I was like, I guess he doesn't care. Just gonna touch on this real quickly. Just wondering from Tony Del Monte, just wondering any chance of Sabu maybe in AEW. I don't see Tony Khan being a Sabu guy.
Well, I know that he's had his problems in the past, but I know a lot of companies have a lot of heat with Sabu, and people hold his past reputation against him, even though I think now that he's with Super Genie, Melissa Coates, who recently had her leg amputated. I was sorry to hear that. Speaking of amputations, there's been a lot of them in wrestling lately. That Ring of Honor ex-wrestler too, which we can talk about after. But I believe Melissa actually really helped him clean himself up. And he wrestled the Blood Hunter in PCW Ultra last year, and they gave me that match to put on my channel along with a lot of other PCW Ultra matches. And it looked like Sabu would still go to me from that match.
I like him, and I've dealt with him a few times. I've helped get him a booking with somebody, and I've booked him myself, and I've done an interview with him, and he's been nothing but great to me. I've seen him backstage at a show when I was with Shane Douglas. He was awesome to Shane. He was awesome to the boys. So I got nothing but good things to say, but I just have a feeling that Tony Khan, I don't know, he just wouldn't jive with Sabu.
I agree. And the other thing I'll ask you about now, I did do that interview with Rob Van Damme this year, speaking of Sabu, because they're good buddies. They trained together at the Sheik's house, the original Sheik, not the Iron Sheik. But Rob Van Damme actually got mad at me when I mentioned he was a former Impact wrestler, because it had been announced 3 or 4 weeks earlier that he had parted ways, and he had said, no, I've not parted ways with Impact. And where do you get your information from? It was kind of an awkward moment, but I don't believe he's appeared for them. Has he?
No, he's gone. Yeah, he's been gone. Yeah, that's kind of weird that he would kind of fight against it. Maybe he was still on a TV show and they didn't want to reveal it. Maybe I don't know. That's weird. That's
I know you keep track better than me, but
he's gone.
Looking out for it, because I was like, okay, he got so mad at me. Other than that, it was a great interview, and every time I met him before, it seemed like we were on good terms. So I was just wondering why he was getting a little bit cranky with me on that. And it turns out, I don't know, maybe he'll surprise us, but I really don't want to see him in Impact, to be perfectly honest with you. I would, as much as I'm not an AEW fan, I think he would do much better there. But whatever, he saved his money well, and he did well for himself. So
yep.
I hope we haven't seen the last of him. I'd like to see him in PCW Ultra if they get going again. I know he was a former PCW Ultra champion.
Yeah, I feel like he's still got a little bit life left in him for sure, and he's got a huge name value. So he would help anybody out. PCW Ultra, AEW, he'd be nice for, because they need some more star power of guys that can actually wrestle. So that would be nice. Pliss Strong said, "I love watching Hannibal TV every day and promoting them on social media. Boss, you are awesome."
Thank you. I appreciate your shares of our stuff on Twitter.
Mr. Arroyo again, what happened to the 2020 Hall of Fame class? They're actually looking for a physical venue. I guess they don't want to just kind of throw that away. You had Batista, you had the NWO in there, so it's like they need to do a physical ceremony for these guys because they could make money off of it. So I think that's what they're doing or what they're looking for. I don't think they're going to have a 2021 class per se because they still have to honor 2020.
That is what I have read as well. And I do know that I understand they're planning on doing it at the WrestleMania weekend this year. If the situation is better by then, who knows? But I understand Harry, the British Bulldog, Smith, Davey Boy Smith Jr., who's the Hannibal TV champion of Great North Wrestling, is supposed to be inducting his father into the WWE Hall of Fame. And they have been recording some stuff with him, but for whatever reason, doesn't look like they've officially scooped him up yet, which kind of baffles me.
That is a weird one. As soon as I heard he's a free agent, I thought they would announce that they signed him. So I'm kind of waiting for them to officially sign him. That's a weird one. What about Paul London? He was awesome in WWE. I've interviewed him before. He's awesome. Rick, I know his buddies with him, says he's one of his favorite people of all time, one of the nicest guys. So he absolutely loves Paul London. Have you ever interviewed Paul?
That actually reminds me, because I believe in one of the podcasts that you and I and Rick did say, I believe he was going to hook me up because I wanted the Mordecai story.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
About it. So maybe I should remind Rick because I would like to interview Paul. Maybe it was the Good Guys podcast. I think it's so funny, by the way. I got to bring this up for that podcast that Rick wanted to do about the good guys in wrestling because he had so much heat from his other podcasts. The clip of him taught, like he gave another clarification of his Ultimate Warrior story in that podcast, and the clip of him giving his clarification ended up getting like 5 times as many hits as the podcast, and that was the one clip that he got a ton more heat off of. So his plan backfired, and I don't think he's done another one since, possibly due to those reasons, other than his own podcast, but not one of the ones where he's talked about specific topics, because they seem to always backfire no matter what his intentions are. And I'll tell you guys, he is a good guy. He does work with Pitbull Rescue. He's helped both John and I get a lot of interviews. So I know some of our fans probably don't like him for whatever reason, but he does help get content. And in my personal dealings with him, he's been a great friend to me. So there's other sides. I know you guys that are Ultimate Warrior fans kind of don't like him, and you're entitled to that. But there is good things about him. And of course, the Cornette fans hate him.
Yes, that is for sure. And when he kind of alluded to the fact that maybe he could beat up Paul Orndorff, I know a lot of people got pissed because, and I even said this to him. I said, Rick, Orndorff, probably now he would still kill you. Or, Orndorff is a killer. This guy beat the crap out of Vader easily. And Sullivan said, and Kevin Sullivan's nuts. He said, I would never fight Orndorff in a million years. I said, why? It would just be like a good scrap. He goes, no. He goes, you don't fight guys like that. He goes, they literally do not care if they lose. And he goes, and he's not going to lose either. So he's just going to go nuts. He's like, it's like Haku. You just don't fight the guy. There's no sense in it.
Charlie Haas strikes me as someone like that.
Yes.
If, let's say if I were to fight him, it'd be fairly even. If I won, I would still not win. Nobody would win.
Yes.
There would be too much damage. You wouldn't get out of something like that with no damage. And I'll just address it again for the people that I had an interview that has like well over 100,000 hits with Charlie Haas, and people think because he lost weight that he's on something. No, he's just got back into amateur wrestling. So he's actually more dangerous than ever, and he's doing great in PCW Ultra. And I would consider him one of the toughest in today's wrestling. And John mentions Haku. He's another guy that belongs in the Hall of Fame. We've had our differences, but he's got to be the toughest of all time. And there's people that when you're around them, they have the aura of toughness, and Haku's one of them. And you can see the bone structure in his hands and the thickness of his jaw and the thickness of his head.
Yep.
And this guy can take punishment.
Yep. And it's funny, I interviewed him a while back. It was actually to promote his appearance at PCW Ultra, so it's pretty cool little tie in there. But he said the Steiner brothers were tougher than him. Like, and I was like, they kind of alluded to the fact that you could kick their ass, maybe, or it would be even or something. I go, what about the Barbarian? He goes, oh, Barbarian would beat me up. So I asked Barbarian. Barbarian said no way, and that the Steiner brothers and him would all lose to Haku. So I think another good thing is he's very humble too. He doesn't like outright say kill people, which makes me think that he would kill everybody.
I would put him above the Steiners just because his striking is better and he has good balance from sumo.
Yep.
I would put him above for that reason. And also, I've been around him and Barbarian, and Barbarian definitely is a tough guy, but Haku has more of a badass vibe to him.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's definitely scary. Barbarian's actually like really like friendly. Like when you talk to him, Haku, you still get that sense like, something he could snap or something. You get scared. When is Jack Swagger's next fight? I haven't heard anything. I know he's 3-0, obviously controversially 3-0 for Bellator. I haven't heard about a next fight yet. I know on AEW he just lost to Wardlow, who's got a ton of potential. I don't know if they've been booking him correctly, but he's got a ton of potential there. Hopefully we'll see Swagger get a little bit more striking in his next fight. I feel like that was the thing that was lacking when he couldn't get the takedown. His striking wasn't there.
He's lucky that fight didn't go another round because that guy had him. But I think the judging wasn't fully fair on that. And if the way I judge a fight, me personally, is how do each of them look after, and Swagger's face was all screwed up. He was huffing and puffing, sitting on the chair. His opponent, who I actually interviewed, had his hands up, was saying, let's go another round right now, had very little damage. So I honestly don't know if Swagger would even fight again because he's had, 4 fights now, 3 fights?
4, he's 3-0-1, yeah.
Yeah, the one before this last one, he gave the guy 3 low blows. And that guy was supposed to be a kind of tomato can. And this guy was also, and it was this guy I interviewed, he had very short notice for the fight. Swagger had known for a long time. So it was like they wanted someone that he could beat. And again, he had that issue. And I'm not saying Swagger is not tough. He's very tough. And we all saw they gave CM Punk a tomato can. His second fight in the tomato can embarrassed CM Punk. So Swagger did still have good showings, but that last one, it really could have gone the other way too, depending on judges. And he has an AEW job, and I've seen the purses for Bellator. They're not that big, and he was on the preliminary card. So I doubt he was making a fortune. I don't know if he would want to risk his reputation by possibly losing a fight and having a blemish on his record. That's just my thoughts on it. He has a nice contract. Wrestling's a lot easier, a lot less stressful. But we'll see. If he's offered a lot of money, that might be different, but I don't think he'll take a $100,000 fight. Again, that's just my thoughts on it. But even Harry Smith, he talked to me about that, and Harry trained with Swagger. He said the other guy won that fight. He said, I don't know what happened to Swagger. I don't know why he didn't go for more takedowns. But in Harry's judging too, he said the same thing.
Wow. Okay. Ed Kelly, what's up, guys? Watching with my son. Can you guys give little Eddie a shout out? What's up, little Eddie? I'm trying to get back into wrestling again and get my kids into it. What's a good promotion that we can get into? That is a great question for you, Hannibal.
Well, I'm biased towards SWE Fury because I'm an interviewer for them, but I would say SWE Fury because it is family friendly content and it's good old fashioned Texas wrestling, hard hitting. And as we talked earlier, the people putting the matches together are the very man that's on your shirt, the Taskmaster himself, Kevin Sullivan, former WCW head booker when they were kicking WWE's butt.
Yep.
And Terry Funk is a genius when it comes to matches and the behind the scenes stuff. So as much as I've had my issues with him, I think I'm very excited actually to see what Terry Funk's going to come up with as far as ideas for that company.
Yeah, should be interesting. Just saw a comment here, just kind of scrolling through. It said, oh, here it is. About before Carl's Jr., superstar Billy Graham-Berger, but here, Bon Louis, Dan Severn over Haku and Swagger. Severn is a badass and a trained fighter and has over 100 career wins. He is definitely a guy. I was talking more wrestlers, pro wrestlers. Obviously, Severn was a pro wrestler before MMA, but I don't know. I wasn't thinking guy with that much experience. But hey, Severn would, in his prime, probably do a ton of damage over a lot of people.
The striking of Severn is not what Haku's striking is. And I know Severn and Haku, and I know Severn doesn't have quite the mean streak Haku is. Maybe in an MMA cage under MMA rules, I might give that one to Severn. But Haku's where he's in a situation where he's legitimately bit a guy's nose off and got over it and had to pay a lot of money for it. He didn't make the guy lose the eye, but he actually popped an eye out of a socket of another guy. He's not fighting under the marquee of Queensberry rules. So maybe in an MMA match, I think Severn, using his tactics from amateur wrestling, might be able to do better than in a street fight where anything goes with Haku, where he seems to have a legitimate crazy side, yes. Where Dan Severn, to me, is not. He obviously has a wild side, but he's not out of his mind crazy like Haku can get.
Jim Varsalone said Hager did enough to win the fight. He won rounds 1 and 3. Hager did more, and that's why he looked tired by the end. His opponent won the second round for sure, but did not do enough to win the whole fight. Interesting take by James.
As I said, I go by what they look like after. So that's what I go by. In high school, when I would get into fights, we wouldn't say, well, you won the majority of it, but this guy's got stitches and his nose is twisted sideways and is all puffy. They would say, this guy got his ass kicked.
That was like when Johnny Hendricks fought GSP, and GSP literally looked like an alien from another country. Like his face was just completely rearranged, and Hendricks looks like he didn't get touched, and he's like, how did I lose?
Just GSP retired?
Yes.
Yeah.
Literally. And then he thought he lost. He admitted he lost after the fight, thought he lost. And then, Dana White goes, no, you won, blah, blah. And then he kind of went back and retracted that he lost. But that was basically when he retired because he couldn't hang anymore. And then Dana White kind of admitted, he goes, these guys are killers now. I don't know if GSP wants to fight these guys. So that was basically why he retired before coming back for Bisbee.
Will come back, even though he said he's retired a million times, because it's every time he's interviewed, he always hints at the potential of coming back. I think it's just a matter of the right fight and the right money. But I do believe, as you said, one of the reasons he retired after that is because a lot of people believed he lost the fight, even people in Quebec.
Yep.
And I trained in the same wrestling room as GSP. I trained also at TriStar where he was. So I actually love GSP. So I kind of stood up for him. But it's like the Swagger fight. A lot of people will say the other guy won.
Were you disappointed in Rory McDonald and Bellator? I feel like he really kind of got, I don't know if exposed or they put bad matches, but man, he got wrecked. Mousasi embarrassed. That was one of the most lopsided, big fights I've ever seen. Mousasi just destroyed him. And Lima, I thought did enough to win the first one, but kind of gassed out. The second fight, he destroyed him. Were you were you thinking McDonald was a flop in Bellator?
I think, unfortunately, he never reached the predictions people had for him of being the next George St. Pierre. But I actually had the opportunity to grapple with Rory McDonald when I was training at TriStar and also do takedown training with him. And he's good. So, yeah, I was disappointed to hear about that because I was very honored that a couple of times I got to roll around with him, and he was great. He was definitely great. And I was, as I said, it was amazing grappling with him. And yeah, I don't know, bad matches. And he also stopped training at TriStar, and didn't he start training somewhere else? So that may have had something to do with it too. I think he started training in BC, where he was from. I remember seeing a video related to that. And then maybe he even changed again. But coaching has a lot to do with it. And sparring partners also have a lot to do with it. So, yeah.
It was just surprising to me that he did not have a good run with Bellator at all. The Fitch fight was terrible. I mean, he was not his normal self in Bellator for sure. I guess it's AIOKL, I guess. Southwest Fury is recognizable as pro wrestling. I dig it. I really like Fury as well. I think it's great. Then he came back and said, Dan Severn, MMA rules, headbutts on the ground. It'd be a fun fight, him versus Haku. I agree.
Even in you know what? That would be, I know Haku wouldn't do it. Severn probably would, because Severn loves money. But even today, that fight actually might draw more than anything in UFC other than Conor McGregor and John Jones.
Yep.
People would love to see that. But no commission would, I don't know if any American MMA commission would allow that. Maybe Alabama.
Mr. Thump, great point here. Robbie Lawler took Rory's soul. Possibly.
That can happen too. That can happen. Like when you've been beaten bad, it's hard to overcome that. That's the problem with MMA. Why wrestling's the easier ways.
Yep. Yeah, Lawler, that fight, that was brutal. Oh, man. It was going along okay, and then he just completely just knocked his ass out. But Ed from Queens, who would win, Bob Backlund or Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff?
Orndorff would fight dirty. Backlund was a better amateur wrestler. That would be an interesting one. Backlund would have had better cardio, so I'll have to go with Backlund.
I would just go, if there's no rules, I would just go Orndorff, because I think he would try to poke his eyes out or grab his balls or something. Or bite him or something. Yeah, I would just go Orndorff, because if there's no rules, I'd go Orndorff, because I think he would cheat. Backlund, if it was straight up, without being able to cheat, I think Backlund would do it.
And you got to think back to this whole Tony Atlas story with Atlas and Mr. Wonderful. If you listen to Brian Blair's version of it, Wonderful was winning and bit Atlas's ear. But if you listen to Atlas's version, Atlas was winning, and that's when Mr. Wonderful bit his ear, which actually makes sense, because if you're winning a fight, why would you bite someone's ear off? You just want to fucking eat him?
Yeah.
That makes no sense at all, because if you're already pounding him, you're just going to keep pounding him. You wouldn't just go, ah. So I don't know. If Tony could out wrestle Mr. Wonderful, I'm certain Backlund can. But there, as you said it, if he's going to resort to biting, which I can't see Mr. Backlund doing, that takes it to another level. But Backlund had conditioning, so if it depends how much of a technical match it is. If Backlund wants to wait till Orndorff is tired, delay it a little bit, or if it just gets right into it right away. That would have been an interesting one. Now, no doubt Backlund would win, because sadly, Mr. Wonderful is suffering from dementia, and it's really sad. But I did get what I could out of the shoot interview I did with him, and people ask why I did it with him in these states, because his friend Brian Blair said, you got to do it now because it's not getting any better. And you know what? It was my pleasure to give him a payday and spend some time with him. And I think the fans still appreciated that I went in there and I tried to do the best I could, considering his mental health these days.
Yeah, very, very sad to see on Orndorff, who was such a big star, and him and Hogan drew so much money. It was such a money feud in the mid-'80s for sure. Tony Del Monte, who would win in a triple threat? Kurt Angle, Billy Robinson, or Zack Saber Jr.?
Well, that one I would have to go with Kurt Angle.
See, Zack Saber, I love him. I think he's a great technician, but I don't think he could hang. He's too small, I think, or maybe not strong enough to hang with those two. So you got to give it up to Angle or Billy Robinson. I'd probably go Angle too. He's a monster. He's a machine. And you got him coming up. I got him coming up for an interview, which
Yeah.
is very cool.
April 14th for me, and I think you got him in March.
March 5th. Yes.
There you go. So fans, look forward to that. I was shocked, actually. I knew Kurt Angle was popular, but when I announced it, I was just flooded with people coming to me with suggestions for that one. I think it's going to be one of my biggest hit interviews.
He told me that he's got over 300 requests. And then he said, how do you figure out which ones to do, which ones not to do? He goes, because I don't have that much time. So I'm glad he picked mine. I'm glad he picked yours for sure.
Yeah.
Ken Patera, well, Radio asks, why, when Ken Patera was asked about the McDonald's incident, he wouldn't talk about it?
He did talk about it to me. If you search Ken Patera, the Hannibal TV McDonald's incident, you could get his version of it, which he denies throwing the rock. And just to clarify that whole situation, if they had just been nice to the police and cooperated, they probably could have got off on that with just a slap on the wrist. But the unfortunate thing was, when the police came to the hotel room, they got into it with the police, and I believe a woman officer ended up getting seriously injured. So it wasn't just about 2 years in prison for throwing a rock through a window. It was about the police incident after. And I've learned myself that if you're just nice to the cops, half the time, more than half the time, they'll let you off. And I know this from many of the altercations I got into in bouncing. Just be polite and apologize, and they don't want to go through the paperwork half the time.
Yep, for sure. Jim says Billy Robinson was on another level, skill, technique, British style, and could handle his own in a fight. That's for sure. I've heard many stories about his toughness and of all the guys he trained. I mean, he trained a bunch of tough guys, and really, I mean, really like the cream of the crop, creme of the creme of tough guys for sure. Billy Robinson, there's no doubt.
But he was an Olympic gold medalist.
That is true.
Not that he wasn't skilled, but also if you look at Kurt Angle, he was more of a physical specimen with probably better wrestling skill overall. So that's why I would make that pick. And there is some fights on record that Robinson lost. I'm not saying Robinson wasn't skilled, but I just can't see him beating Kurt Angle if they're both in their primes.
Look at this from Plistrong, your buddy. If Kurt Angle versus Daniel Puder actually happened, who would win?
I don't know about you, John, but that was the stupidest thing WWE ever did, was not at least have one match. Yep. Al Snow, I don't agree with the answer he gave me on that, saying they wouldn't have done anything. It would have popped a rating. And you did pay Puder at least $250 out of that $1 million contract.
Yep.
Give the match and at least put Kurt Angle over like you did with Cain Velasquez beating Brock Lesnar. At least the fans would remember that. It just seems like that whole thing, maybe it was because sour grapes on Kurt Angle's part. I don't know, but fans, how many years ago was that? 15 years ago now, and people are still talking about it. So if you look, I actually asked Puder about it, and I just did that interview last year, and it has huge hits, which means that people are still searching the incident up.
I feel like he should have been given some warning too. Like, I guess they didn't know Puder's background. Like, I don't know, maybe give Kurt the heads up. Like, hey, when you take this guy down, he could be dangerous. I don't know, give him some sort of heads up, because Puder actually, he's a trained fighter. He actually knows what he's doing, and Angle probably no clue.
There was apparently Kurt got carried away there too. There was, I forget the story offhand, but he was not supposed to face so many of them. And he just got carried away, like, give me another one. And yeah, he didn't really think about the possibility that one of them could actually know what they were doing.
Yes. I'm from Australia. I wanted to ask you, Hannibal, in your opinion, who is the greatest Australian wrestler?
Well, since I only really know one, Outback Jack, I'll have to go with Outback Jack.
I was going to say that too. Radio said, did Lanny Poffo really slap him? I'm trying to remember back to what we were talking about with Lanny. Was it Patera? Did he really slap Patera?
I think Lanny really slapped me.
Oh,
Yes, he did
really?
slap me. But also for Australia, I actually did wrestle someone from Australia once at a Harley race camp. And I would wrestle that guy in Great North Wrestling if the plane ticket wasn't so expensive. Actually, two people. One of them was really good. He was a former pro rugby player, and I think he may have ended up getting booked in Japan. I just can't remember his name. He was really good. And then another guy that we just had good chemistry with. So there are good wrestlers from Australia, but Outback Jack is the most memorable one.
Shane Thorne, Mikey Nichols, both pretty good. Actually, my sister and her family live out in Australia, so I know how expensive everything is out there. It's nuts. Everything is like 15 times the amount more money than it is today for us.
I'd like to go there one day. I've never been.
My brother went there. The flight, holy crap! I was like, that's how much the flight was. It's just insane. Ken Patera versus the Big.
Oh my God, you guys are crazy. Ken Patera would win that.
I would think so. Oh, this is a good one for you, Hannibal. Will you ever interview Jesse the Body Ventura?
I want to. I think John has, but he's my dream interview, as many people know, to find a credible person. Well, speaking of Outback Jack, one guy that claimed he also represented Jesse Ventura, I don't know if it was real or not. This guy is the one that got me the Outback Jack interview. And Outback Jack later told me that this guy ripped him off. So I won't deal with that agent again. So if I can find another way to connect with Jesse Ventura, I will. But right now, with the pain of crossing the border, and I know Jesse's in Mexico for the winters, it's going to probably hold off till at least the summer, but he's on my list.
Yes, interviewed him. I think it was about 5 years ago now. He awesome interview. They literally had to patch him in for Mexico. He was quote unquote off the grid, but yeah, he was awesome. And I know that, and that guy that set up that interview, he did hook Ventura up, and he does know Jesse, so he does know him. But I would just make sure you talk to Jesse directly and not deal with him.
I know a lot of people that are actually friends with Jesse, so who knows? I know that guy probably hates me now. I'm not mentioning his name, but as I said, if you rip off a blind guy, you're really a loser in my book.
And look at this, Chris Monty. How could we forget Nathan Jones?
I've interviewed Nathan Jones.
Really? I didn't know that. That's awesome. I was trying to get him on. I couldn't get him. Awesome. How was he?
I saw him in person with his wife, and people should look that one up. He was very
like 4'11", isn't she?
She's a little girl, and they were very much in love, and he's throwing her around in the interview, picking her up. He seems like a really nice guy. Didn't seem like he had the best wrestling experience. He claimed his MMA fight in Japan was a work, which is possible. But yeah, he's over and done with in wrestling. And I heard that from Harry, who I brought up earlier, he was used on a couple of shows where Nathan Jones was on back in those days, even though he was still in high school, because I was training with Harry at the time. And I remember Harry telling me it seemed like a lot of people backstage were legitimately afraid of Nathan Jones because I guess of his reputation from being a prisoner or whatever. But it's funny because when I met him, he was a great guy, but maybe because people were afraid of him for whatever reason, maybe that had to do with why his time didn't last. And also it seems like he didn't enjoy it that much.
Yep, for sure. And he was great in Mad Max. If you go back a couple of years, he plays one of the villains, one of the lead villains. He was great in that movie. It has such a great look. Just looks like he would just kill somebody. Sophie Marie said, so can we expect you to make an appearance in the Maritime Wrestling anytime soon?
Well, here in Canada, I don't know if you're talking about U.S. Maritimes or Canada Maritimes. We're on lockdown, so there's nothing going on, so it has to do with that. But I have had talks about I have actually a few years ago, I filmed 2 Grand Prix wrestling events in the Maritimes, and I wrestled Rene Dupree on those events. I'm not wrestling anymore, but I would be open to filming more maritime events in the future because I know we have fans up there, and I also know a lot of maritime wrestlers. but it's just a matter of, it doesn't look like there's going to be much wrestling in Canada here until at least the fall due to these heavy restrictions.
Here's a good question, or actually not a question, a comment. Just Josh, Jesse would love to talk to you, bro. Is that a fact? I wonder if that's a fact, if Jesse wants to talk to you.
Who knows? But because of my Billy Graham connection, I know Billy wants me to interview Jesse too, because he had a few messages he wanted me to pass along to Jesse. I still have those emails that Billy sent me. So whenever I talk to Jesse, I will pass those messages on. Hopefully I can get it while Billy's still alive, because I would love to reconnect those two, because unlike Hogan, Jesse's always said that Billy Graham was great to him throughout his whole career, and he always credited Billy as a big part of his career. So I think it'd be great if they could at least have a phone call or something before it's too late.
Yep. I must have misquoted Sophie Marie. She said Maritimes, Canada, and I actually said at some point. So she did not say soon. She just said at some point.
Sorry, I didn't mean to get on your bad side.
Hannibal, of all the guys you've interviewed, who was the nicest and who was the biggest dick?
Well, I think I've answered that one before. Hillbilly Jim was the nicest, and Juventud Guerrera was the biggest dick. With Carlito, he wasn't a dick to me personally, but he was a close second for poor answers. Juventud, I guess, did so-so answers. He danced around a lot of questions, but to physically deal with him and then going under the time of the interview that he was paid for, that's why he was a dick. And he was like the most arrogant asshole I've ever met, as far as someone I've shoot interviewed.
Damn. From James, good show, guys. Thank you. Ronaldo Reyes, world-class Sunshine or Iceman King Parsons interview. Both of those would be awesome.
I agree. Someone hook us up. Lots of people have asked me for Sunshine. I have no idea how to contact her, but as I get more connected on the Texas wrestling scene, which obviously I'm an interviewer for SWE Fury now, I'm going to be going there at least once a month. I'm going twice in February. I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of these rare Texas interviews.
Will we ever get a Scott Hall interview?
I know Rick Bassman has talked about it for himself. He seems like he'd be a hard one to get. And when Rick has talked about it, and I don't know why Rick likes doing this, but it's his show. He can do whatever he wants. He likes multiple guests, and he had an idea of having Scott Hall with like 3 other guests. And I was telling Rick, it's going to be hard enough to just get Scott Hall, but to like get him and 3 guests to actually show up at the exact same time, that's going to be a feat that I don't know if it could be pulled off, but I hope he can do it. I really hope. He likes these battle royal style interviews. So,
but he's such a big name. You want him by himself because you want to hear what he has to say.
Especially since we had this discussion with Rick about Nash too.
Yeah.
Guys like Hall and Nash, I don't think they've done shoot interviews since the DVD era. So to get a rare find like that, I would agree you'd really want to maximize your time with him. So I hope Rick can pull it off. He knows those guys better than us, so he might be able to do us a favor, but I wouldn't count on it. With Hall in particular, because I've heard that Hall, I hate to use the word flaky, but he can be like that, and he's made his money, and he's got a lot of stuff to do, so to take time to talk to someone like me, I don't know if that's going to happen. I did do a short interview with him, though, in person, which you guys can check out on here. And it's funny. I like the way that like he just like cut himself out of the interview and like went out of the camera just after like 3 questions. He's like, I gotta go.
Yeah.
So he's not the type that wants to actually do interviews really either. I got that impression from him.
Yeah, I've interviewed him before, but only for about 15 minutes for a 2-man power trip. He was great, but you could tell it was like you knew it was going to be shorter in length. He wasn't going to stay. And I have interviewed Nash before. He was a little bit longer and a little bit more kind of like forthcoming stuff. But Hall definitely is elusive, to say the least.
Yeah, I got an interview with Nash too backstage at a wrestling event. Unfortunately, there was music playing in the background, so it wasn't the greatest, but it was better than nothing. Nash is more reliable and will actually try, but he's a big movie star now, and I'm pretty sure he's quite disillusioned with wrestling, and I don't blame him for not really wanting to talk about wrestling and answer questions that he's answered a lot. But if Rick can pull it off, I think that would be really cool, and I know that they've had communication recently. So,
yep. Any chance of a part 2 with Lex Luger?
I think he's mad at me for the first one. Now, when it ended, this has happened a few times. I don't know if this has ever happened with you, John, but they do these interviews and then something they say is taken bad by the fans, and then they kind of hold it against you for something that they said themselves. And I don't know, he's never answered me about a part 2 because there was a lot of requests for a part 2. So I guess one of my biggest shoot interview regrets was not making that one a 3-hour. And I realized that as soon as it finished because I didn't get anywhere near all the questions I wanted to get. But I didn't have the extra money to just say, okay, here's another wad of cash for another hour.
Right.
But yeah, unfortunately, I get the feeling, particularly about the part where he described the Elizabeth situation and Brody situation. If you look at the comments, most of the comments are negative. So I don't know if he got that kind of feedback from the fans as well. Or it could be also a case where he looked at my channel and a lot of people on my channel have said negative stuff about him because he is a changed man now, but back in the day, he self-admittedly was a different person and didn't treat everyone the best. Yep. So maybe he might hold that against me too, that maybe he didn't know my channel when he agreed to it, but now that he knows, he may have seen some of those other videos. So for whatever reason, I've tried several times. So to answer your question, no, maybe John will. I know John's interviewed him.
Yep, interviewed him before. I'd love to have him on again. What about a Jim Cornette interview?
I'm sure he'll appear with John again.
I've had him on 5 times. I've recently called him. I want to get him on for a 6th for sure. And to me, I know you don't like him, but he's been awesome to me. But I'll quickly go on to the next one.
If someone wants to pay me $100,000, I'll do it. But that's about it. That's the only way I'll do it.
Pro Wrestling Defined, Monty Brown would be a good interview. Haven't seen many with him. Yes, he is rare as hell. He would be an awesome one.
I agree.
I actually talked to him last year about a booking and stuff, and then he said he didn't really want to do the interview unless he was doing the booking. The booking didn't happen, so he didn't want to do the interview, which I totally understand, but I would love to get him on. What about this, Maria Davis? How about an interview with the 1, 2, 3 kid this year if you can?
I have been working on it, and I know Rick is friends with him. I did have an interview with him the same day I interviewed Scott Hall, and we actually kind of had an instant friendship, but I took down his phone number wrong. For some reason, the phone number he gave me for himself, I don't know if I typed it wrong or what, didn't work. So I know Rick's trying to hook me up. He didn't have much luck so far, but I understand, I mentioned this earlier, he recently finished his Hep C treatment and he's now cured of Hep C. And I understand that he said he's going to get a knee operation or some type of operation, then get back into wrestling because he had retired, I guess, due to the Hep C, he wanted to get it taken care of. So maybe when he gets back into the game, he's probably going to do interviews. So it's going to happen. Hold tight.
Nice. Ronaldo Reyes again says Eric Embry, who I've interviewed for. It's over 2-hour interview. Awesome stuff. I haven't seen Eric Embry do many interviews. I know Steve Austin interviewed him, but I haven't seen him do many. Have you ever had Eric Embry?
It's strange. I forget when he called me. It was shortly after Steve Austin gave me one of the plugs on the Steve Austin podcast because he said he'd heard about me on that and he watched a bunch of my stuff and he wanted to tell me something about the Bruiser Brody situation, but he just wanted to tell it to me over the phone. And then I asked him if he would do an interview, and he said he didn't want to do any video interviews for the immediate future. He said he had a real job, and he said he did the Austin one because he had also recently been on the Austin podcast at that time. He said he did that one because it was Steve Austin, and maybe in the future he would do one with me. He did say he was going to continuously call me and talk to me for whatever reason, which I did find strange. And I never did hear from him again after that conversation.
Interesting. What would be more valuable to you as a shoot interview, The Rock or Steve Austin?
Well, The Rock, I think, would make more money due to him being arguably the biggest star in the world. I would say eventually I will get a Steve Austin interview. I just might not be famous enough to get it just yet. But I think it's going to happen one day because I am friends with one of his daughters, and he does communicate. He does respond to me when I message him. So he doesn't hate me, but he is working with WWE right now. So WWE, I know, doesn't like me. So I don't know if he'd want to bother. And also, I'm much lower than him still. Maybe if I get more popular, which is happening year after year, maybe when I get more up to his level, he'll agree to it. But because he talks to me, I'm not going to harass him over it because maybe he'll stop answering me if I continuously ask him about it.
Yes. To me, I would want Austin over Rock just because I was always a huge Austin fan. But hey, that's just me. Have you ever reached out to Tatanka for an interview? Have you ever had him on?
I don't like him. I've had bad feelings with him both in the ring and as a promoter. So I really don't like him. That's my answer.
I've actually interviewed him, and surprisingly, I thought he was great. It was weird. It was like he gave me like almost like a time frame, and it was like, you got to do it now or we can't do it. I'm like, what if we do it another time? Nope, it's got to be this. Like, he was very precise and very exact. So I met his needs, and then he was really nice. He's really cool. Well, I think it was like 35 minutes. So it wasn't like crazy long or anything, but he was cool. He was nice. He gave a couple really good stories, but I could see what you mean because I had a promoter friend of mine that I knew. They're like, oh, Tatanka's harassing me and he's giving me a hard time after I'm booking him, and he didn't like the flight I booked, but he picked the flight. So
he's
I don't know.
able to deal with as a promoter, which is why you don't hear him booked as regularly on the indie scenes. Also, as a wrestler, when I'd wrestle him, he was farting in the ring both times I wrestled him. Chop in the neck, chop in the nipple. He had long fingernails. He's just a terrible person to be in the ring with, and arrogant. He puts himself in the same category all the time as like the 80s WWE wrestlers, when actually when he had his run, it was like the downtime of wrestling. So I don't like that he acts like he's in the same category as the guys from the 80s. But whatever. Yes, I will not interview him unless someone, again, I'm a businessman. If someone wants to pay me a large fee to interview him, I would. But I don't ever want to deal with him again because his last business dealings with me completely turned me off of him as a person, and I'd actually never want to see him again. He's one of those people I just never, ever want to see again in my life.
Vince McMahon says Tatanka was great, so he obviously does not agree with you.
Well, have you been in the ring with him?
Mike, hey, Mike D, I never liked Tatanka. Tatanka the farter. That's a good one. Here's another one. Tatanka needs depends. You're getting a lot of support out here. I feel like it's like a 2-to-1 ratio. You're getting a lot of support. Somebody here, Plus Strong. I'd rather watch straight up Steve Austin than Ms. and Mrs.
I haven't seen either, so I can't really comment. But I'm obviously a Steve Austin fan, so I'll agree with you. Yes, although I try and distance myself from current WWE superstars, so that's the only reason I wouldn't want to watch straight up with Steve Austin. just because I like to distance my thoughts about current wrestling, other than the promotions such as SWE Fury, PCW Ultra, Great North Wrestling.
I have seen both shows. I will agree. I like straight up Steve Austin better. Ms. and Mrs. is, reality TV, but it's so scripted. It's just, I don't know, it's a little cheesy. I mean, I love Maurice, but it's a little cheesy. You probably love Maurice as well.
I disappeared for a second. I don't know if I'm back yet.
Oh, yeah, you're back. You are back.
Okay. By the way, Ms. and Mrs. often gets higher ratings than NXT.
Yes, I've noticed that. Yes, for sure. It usually kind of hovers around 1 million. So, I mean, it does better than AEW as well.
Yeah.
Do you think Vince McMahon will ever do a shoot interview?
Yes.
He's doing a documentary where he will be getting interviewed. I believe Bill Simmons is doing it. So he's definitely going to be doing a shoot style interview for sure.
He's doing a book too. So I'm sure he's going to do lots of interviews around that. Will he ever do one with me? Again, it depends. If I can never become, I will never become Joe Rogan's level, but if I could get higher up and it will be more of a benefit to him than a personal vendetta to do an interview with me, I'm sure he would do one, but he's 75 now. So who knows how much longer he's going to be around.
Jerry Saggs interview?
I've interviewed Knobs a bunch of times, so I don't know if I'd want to pay Saggs because it's a lot of the same stories. So if it was free, sure. I wouldn't say no, but I do know that I asked Jerry Saggs for an interview once at a convention, just a couple minute one, and he said no. So I don't know. I was surprised that he wouldn't do one with me because Andrew Anderson, who I interviewed last night, was right beside him. And I'm friends with Andrew, and Andrew told Jerry, hey, Hannibal's a good guy. And everyone else, it was your convention, actually.
Yeah.
Your New Jersey convention. Everyone did an interview with me there, even Billy Jack Hayes, other than I think Saggs was the only one that said no. So I don't have any. I respect it if you don't want to do one with me for free, but I was a little shocked because I have done them with Knobs and I kind of put over the Nasty Boys on my channel. So I thought it was a little strange. He has done a couple for Penzer on my channel when Penzer has done interviews for me. So, but yeah, to answer your question, I don't know.
I'd love to get Saggs too. I've had on Knobs. I would love to get Saggs for sure.
Probably the same reason.
Yep. Do you think Bruce Pritchard is full of shit?
He exaggerates and has his own spin, just like everybody does. But I'm not an anti-Bruce Pritchard person.
Who do you guys think will take over WWE when Vince dies, Shane or Triple H? I think Vince is protecting Shane by keeping him out of the firing line.
I don't know what you've heard, John, but I believe it's Triple H and Stephanie that are the next in line to the throne.
I'm hearing Stephanie more than Triple H for sure.
Yeah. Well, they're married, so
yeah, they're going to be. Yeah, yep. What about Typhoon interview?
I wouldn't be opposed to it. I'm sure John may have done one.
Yes. I've interviewed this man, Ahmed Johnson. Have you had Ahmed Johnson?
I heard your interview with Ahmed Johnson, actually.
Nice.
I would love to interview him. I know he lives in Texas, maybe Houston, is it that he said?
I believe it's Houston. Yep.
I know people would love to see him, and like the last time I'm not saying this to anything against Ahmed, but it seems every time I see another picture of him, he's gained 100 pounds. So I really hope he gets his weight under control.
He is great, though, as far as interviews, because he doesn't pull punches and he doesn't give a shit, what he has to say. So I feel like he's awesome for shoot interviews because he's not going to lie. And he's going to tell you the straight, honest truth. And he'll tell you if he doesn't like Steve Austin or whatever, or Jeff Jarrett. So,
yeah, I heard the Jeff Jarrett part. I remember that one. He really hated Jeff Jarrett.
Yes.
But he sounded like a cool guy. And yeah, since I'm spending time in Texas, maybe not now, but maybe once this COVID ends and people are more open to in-person interviews, I will work on him.
Onita. Would you interview Onita? Does he speak English? That's my...
Yeah, I don't know. And I'll be honest, other than the name, I don't know much about him. I don't really follow Japanese wrestling.
A deathmatch legend for sure. Would you interview Eric Bischoff? Says Michael Collins.
John has, and I reached out once and was told he wasn't doing them. Maybe it's changed now. I don't know. I wouldn't be opposed to it.
I think he's doing them again. There was a brief time, but I believe, I've interviewed him twice, and then he came on with me and Kevin Sullivan. I'd say probably about 3 months ago or 4 months ago. Oh well, you obviously but yeah,
It's
he
on
came
here.
on.
If anyone wants to look it up, Eric Bischoff, Kevin Sullivan interview. John was asking most of the questions.
There was the first time they've talked like in that shoot interview, whatever interview style. That's the first time they really talked. I think it was 20 years as far as on camera. So that was the first meeting. So very, very cool stuff. Check it out on Hannibal TV. Check it out on this channel. Who would you rather interview, Paul Heyman or Eric Bischoff?
Paul Heyman would be more rare, but between the two, I'd rather interview Paul Heyman, but if I had to work with either of them, I'd rather work with Eric.
I would just say Paul Heyman because I haven't interviewed him yet, and he would be an awesome one. I'd literally have 1,000,001 questions for him, especially after talking to PJ and talking to Shane and talking to Kevin Sullivan. I'd have probably maybe 1,000,001 more questions.
I doubt Paul Heyman will ever do interviews.
I doubt it. Yep.
He's so busy, and he gets paid a lot of money too.
Oh yeah, Tommy Dreamer from Adrian in the UK. Have you ever had on Tommy Dreamer?
I have. He was one of my first ones. You just got to search for it. Tommy Dreamer, the Hannibal TV. You'll also see the match where I kicked his ass and made him submit. He will lie and say he only ever submitted to, I forget who it was, someone that died recently. But I heard him say that, and I think Raven even emailed me and said, "Didn't Tommy Dreamer submit to you?" And I said, "Yes." Oh, I think it may have been Kurt Angle. I don't remember, but he was on the record saying he only submitted to one person, and many fans reached out to me and said, "Wait a minute, he submitted to you. What the hell's the deal there?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I guess he forgot about me."
Yeah, he definitely forgot about you. How about a Bob Holly interview, Mike D? Again, Mike, thank you.
I would be open to it. Sure, he's a popular subject. I tried to get one with him a few years ago when he was in Iowa doing a match up there, the Hall of Fame weekend, but they said he wasn't really interested. So who knows? He doesn't seem like a guy that likes to talk a lot. He seems like a very uptight person, but who knows?
Welcome back. Also, actually, the Bob Holly interview. I actually know Bob pretty well. It's funny. He's got like that tough outside exterior, and like, man, he doesn't really want to talk. But I was busting his balls enough, and he's like, "All right, man, let's just do the interview." He goes, "You've asked me enough times. Let's just do it." So I was lucky enough to get him on, even though at first he was, like you said, very apprehensive. It was almost like, "Come on, John, stop bothering me. I'm not doing it." And then finally he broke. It's like, "All right, let's do it." And he had a lot of good stuff to say. So definitely check that out on the TMPT feed.
He must have made a lot of money too. Yeah, check it out on the TMPT podcast. But he was in WWE for so long. I'm sure if he saved his money well, it's like he doesn't want shoot interview pay, because they do get you in trouble, by the way. Like, they get you in some trouble, which is one of the reasons why Sheldon Benjamin said no. He wrestled for Great North Wrestling, but he wouldn't even do a 5-minute interview with me because he knows that I could ask him something that could have prevented him from being rehired.
Yes, definitely. Would you be interested in interviewing some current New Japan Pro Wrestling stars? Some have wider international appeal, perhaps. That's from Catherine Dixon. Again, thank you, Catherine.
I don't really follow the New Japan product, to be honest with you.
Oh, you need to. It's vastly superior than the other stuff that I've seen as far as current wrestling. And it's funny, they always have better wrestling. No matter they lose Omega, so what? Jay White comes in and he's great. I feel like if you're into like actual sport pro wrestling, you love New Japan. And some of those guys are great to interview. Like Juice Robinson, I feel like he'd be a great interview. Rocky Romero is great. Bad Luck Fale is great. Tama Tonga. There's a couple of really good ones I think that you would probably do well with.
Tama Tonga, Haku's son, of course, he would be on. He would be the guy I would interview. I have followed him a little bit. And, of course, I'm sure Haku's son, people would love to hear the stories.
Here's a good question for Pro Wrestling Defined. Out of the wrestlers that have passed away that you didn't interview yet, obviously, and you never got the chance to interview, who would you like to have interviewed out of those that have passed?
I was just thinking that about somebody recently, and now it's slipped my mind. I don't know why it slipped my mind, but there was someone that died recently that I was thinking would have been a great interview to get, and it was unfortunate, but the name's not coming to me. If it comes to me in another few days, I'll mention it. But there was someone, I'm trying to think of the big names that passed this past year, but one guy I really wanted to redo was Kamala, because he had an air conditioning on in his trailer, which he couldn't turn off because of his health. But unfortunately, the air conditioner sound kind of ruined the interview in some ways. So that was one of a guy that passed. But Lou Thez, that's a long time ago, but Lou Thez I would have liked to interview. And by the way, my water's going through me, so I think we'll have to wrap this up soon. But this has been very interesting. And John, you know what? Maybe I'll run to the bathroom while, John, you tell them about your podcast.
Sure.
Business of Pro Wrestling.
Sure. Got a lot of stuff going on as far as the podcasts. You got Taskmaster Talks, Taking Your School with Dr. Tom Pritchard, Pro Wrestling 101 with Justin Credible, Triple Threat Podcast with Shane Douglas, Talking Tough with Rick Bassman, got the two-man power trip of wrestling podcast, got the University of Dutch, got the Business of the Business podcast with Lavi Margolin. As far as that question, as far as dead wrestlers, I would 100% think of the Macho Man Randy Savage. Would have loved to have interviewed him. Obviously, Ultimate Warrior, Roddy Piper. I mean, there's a bunch of them, but Macho Man definitely sticks out above everyone else for sure. Also, you can check me out on Vince Russo's The Brand. I got a lot of stuff going on over there as well. Check them out on the Realm Network too. I got a new interview series I'm working on called John Paz Versus. I will be interviewing a lot of different people. Got an interview coming up with Vince Russo himself. Got an interview coming up with Jason Sensation, who is a good friend of Hannibal. And he actually tells a really, really good story on Abdul the Butcher about how Abdul the Butcher basically cuts him up pretty damn good in that match. I don't know if you've ever seen that Hannibal Jason Sensation versus Abdul the Butcher. Abdul the Butcher cuts him in the head about 14 times.
I have not seen it. I heard about it from Jason, but it's worth listening to. Great guy, funny guy, and I'm glad that he's not getting arrested for threatening to bomb Raws anymore.
What about Taz? Says the Guardian of Chaos.
Taz, actually, if you look at the video where I explain Taz's version of the RVD situation with Taz, you can see he actually wrote a lot of comment responses in that. He watches my channel. He does not want to do an interview. He does talk to me, but he doesn't want to do an interview. The reason he says is he just doesn't do them.
Interesting. Yeah, I would love to get him on too. I've talked to him a few times, and he just said he wasn't interested in doing any interviews. So
I was shocked, though, and it's worth you fans go to look at that, where I kind of gave Taz's side of that situation, and I was kind of amazed to see that he's actually responding to fans and kind of arguing with fans from his account there. So it shows that that's still like a situation that kind of gets under his skin. And I do believe there's probably his side of the story, and I wish he would tell it to me. I put out his side from what I researched, but unfortunately he doesn't want to go on record and stir that whole thing back up, because obviously that's not something he's very proud of, how that whole thing went down.
Yep. Jamie says Mark Lewin needs a shoot. He also sent 369 your way. Definitely a legend. Definitely needs a shoot. That's a rare guy.
Well, he lives in Singapore, according to Kevin Sullivan. So I'm sure Kevin could hook us up if he ever comes to the U.S.
Yep. Michael Collins, great question. I just asked Jason Sensation this. Does he do impressions of current stars? He does not do impressions. For some reason, he said he just can't do it. He said, like, the Hogans and the legends in the world, they like get stuck in his brain, and he feels something with the impression, like he wants to do it. He said these current guys are not lame, I guess, but boring almost to a certain extent. I guess you could say, like, he's not interested in doing a Seth Rollins just because he's not invested in it. Like, he's invested in doing Owen Hart and Brett, and like he loves those guys. So he just, for some reason, can't brain to mouth. He just can't do current guys. And he said it's just hard to do. But I asked him to do Piper on the spot, and like, you close your eyes, you think it's literally Piper. So he can still do impressions, just not the current guys.
Yeah, he's a funny guy, and it's amazing that he can do that. But I don't blame him for the current. They don't stand out as much character wise.
Yep. Ken Mantell. I'm sorry to skip over that. Ronaldo Reyes. Ken Mantell would be a good one for sure. He was a booker, obviously, in world class.
Yeah, that's actually a good idea. He's one of those guys who kind of disappeared.
Plus strong.
Look him up. GreatNorthWrestling@gmail.com.
Yes. Plus, yes, no problem for following you. Anytime. Guardians of Chaos. John, what about Rikishi? I've had Rikishi on. Have you had Rikishi?
I have not. I wouldn't be opposed to it.
He was very good. I remember he was early because we set up a time and he was early and he stayed late. So I was like, oh, I always appreciate that. It's like a small, stupid thing, but I always appreciate that. And I remember that.
And it's funny. I'm sure you'll agree with this. A lot of the ones that are late or not on time are the guys that don't quite make it as stars, where the big stars like the Rob Van Dams and the Boss Rutens and the DDPs, they'll be there on time. They have those good habits.
Yep, for sure. I could. Oh my God! Just thinking back about who wasn't on time, who it was, you could tell the professional guys. Like, I interviewed Shawn Michaels before. You think Michaels was late? Boom! To the minute, he was on time. So it's one of those things that, very, very cool to get that. But like, those are the big professional guys. Jamie Barrios, I like your interviews, Mr. Paz. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Any CCW stars or indie stars from Adrian in the UK is wondering for you, Hannibal.
Well, Lufisto is the current Great North Wrestling Canadian champion. I've had her on, and she used to be a CZW star. I'm not a big proponent of deathmatch wrestling because I don't think it pays the performers enough, and it's really dangerous to take those kind of risks. So I don't really want to promote that kind of stuff because I'm against it.
Logan McLemore says, Rick Martel, this is one of my top 3 dream guys to get.
We get that every day. He's disillusioned with the business.
I talked to him, and I still have the email, the voicemail from him from 4 years ago about how he was not interested. But I had a great conversation with him after that, but he still wasn't interested. He just doesn't. It was weird. Yeah, you're right. He's just totally not interested.
Well, I haven't told you this, but I've told the fans this. Lanny Poffo is close friends with Rick, and all the way back to when Lanny and I were still getting along, I would message Rick every year, and he would say, I'm not into it this year. Message me back next year. Maybe I will, because he only lives 4 hours from me. So I was interested not only in an interview, but also to use him as a referee or something at a Great North Wrestling event. And then finally last year, he messaged me back and he said, sorry, Devin, I'm just not into wrestling anymore. I moved on with my life. I think he said he was into real estate, and he said, I don't think I'm ever going to do it. So he said, sorry. One funny story that I don't think I've told you, I've said it on this channel before, but it's worth saying again about how bad promoters TNA are and Impact. And when I put on the first ever Quebec tour of Canada, I knew Rick Martel was going to be at the show because the promoters of the Colisée Pepsi, where we went, told me he had contacted them to put him in touch with Impact because he wanted to do something on the show for free, just because he wanted to be part of it. And I guess he didn't really like WWE or whatever, but he was willing to do something with Impact. They said, just as they told me why they didn't want PCO on the show, they didn't really want to get any talent other than Impact talent on the show. So they had about 12 or 1,300 fans there, which was good for Impact.
Yeah.
But bad for a 22,000 seat arena, where, by the way, Mantell had fought Flair and had legendary WWE matches there. But in the end, they end up doing something with Rick Martel on the show. He interfered in a Johnny Devine match or something. And it's like you could have had so many more people if you had promoted he was going to be there and had him involved with publicity, only to say you don't want to use him, and then you end up using him anyway. So that's a typical Impact decision, and it still frustrates me to this day looking back on it, since I was the promoter for that.
Yep. Logan also said Adam Bomb. I try Adam Bomb at least once a year. He actually laughed, not laughed, but he was like, John, I really admire your persistence because you keep keep asking. But he goes, I'm not interested at the time. But Adam Bomb, I would love. Have you ever got Adam Bomb?
I've had the same thing exactly. I think he responded once and then stopped responding. He was in the news last year being arrested for some fairly serious alleged crime. So
yeah.
I don't know if this is going to be the time. I would like to have Van Hammer on, another guy that was arrested last year, but I haven't pulled that one off either.
I was actually on tap to interview him. I talked to him, we scheduled it and everything, and then obviously that incident happened and never got a return phone call since. But I want to try him again too, for sure. Jeff Miller says he's got Rikishi's info for you, so reach out to Jeff Miller. For Big Quiche. Welcome back, says Kid Cash. I've had Kid Cash on. I don't know if you have or not.
I have not. The
Clawmaster, Baron von Raschke. I would love to get him on. I have not had him on.
I've had several interviews with Baron. If you look up Baron von Raschke, the Hannibal TV, search it on YouTube, you'll find a lot. He's a bit of a cranky character if you get him on a bad day, but if you get him on a good day, he'll do it.
Michael Collins, who appeared to be the most intelligent person in and out of wrestling that you have ever interviewed?
I've interviewed a former Canadian Minister of National Defense. I've interviewed Nick Pope last week, who was in charge of the British Ministry of Defense UFO office. Both of those guys have to be at the top of the intelligence list of people, and I actually think Paul Hellyer was also the backup Prime Minister of Canada at one point in time, and he's been a member of Parliament for decades. I think he holds one of the records of being one of the longest members of Parliament here in Canada. So, yes, those two would be up there. But as I continue to delve into that field, I will be interviewing people from the science and astrophysics world. So. They'd be up there for sure. Jack
Victory, Terry Taylor. I've interviewed Jack Victory. I talked to Terry Taylor. He's not allowed to do interviews right now per WWE. What about you? Have you interviewed either one or both of these guys?
Well, Terry's always manages to keep a job in the office of every company imaginable. Somehow he's a great politician. So, no, I haven't interviewed him. Jack Victory, I've never met him. I wouldn't be opposed to it. Terry Taylor, I've had good and bad dealings with him. So I would interview him. I'm sure the last dealing I had with him, he wished me well. But I know that he used to be close with Billy Graham. And at one point in time, after I was cured from hepatitis C, before Jim Ross and Gerald Briscoe recommended me back to WWE, because Billy had such a close relationship in the past with Terry Taylor, he had emailed Terry, who was a trainer at NXT, about could you get Hannibal looked at by NXT. And Terry sent this extremely rude email back. And Billy hasn't talked to him since then.
Wow.
It was that rude. And it was like he didn't know that I had won the whole Abdullah the Butcher lawsuit. And he was like insinuating that I was like some type of charlatan making stuff up. But I won in both Canada and the US. But Billy was so offended by it, he said he'll never talk to him again. And
wow. Wow. One Man Gang shoot was epic. Seems like a great guy. Your interview with him was awesome. I interviewed him last year. He is an awesome guy. But yeah, your interview with him was And did awesome numbers for Hannibal TV.
It did, and it was very interesting to see. And he's stayed in contact with me. He actually watched the Just Incredible interview on this channel. He likes Just Incredible. I was wanting to interview him for so long, couldn't find his contact information, then only to find out he actually watches a lot of the interviews on this channel. So I'm sure there's going to be a part 2 with him.
The Berserker interview from Mike D. I've actually had the pleasure of interviewing him and actually reached out to me again about doing another one. So I am definitely open to that. Have you ever had him on? He's awesome.
I listened to your interview with him, and I have to say it's got to be up there with Brutus Beefcake's interview with me for the most lies told in an interview. But I would interview him, and actually, if you talk to him, I would even do it by phone because I know he's not technical. If I ever go to Minnesota, I would do it in person. But if you talk to him again, maybe you could mention, hey, I got another guy that he has a lot of fans constantly asking for interviews.
Yeah, his son could probably help him with the technical aspect if he's with his son.
Okay. Yeah, I would do that. But yeah, some of the stuff he said in yours was the timelines didn't match up.
Yes.
It was just like, there's no way this happened.
It's one of those things. It's like, I can't really explain to him, but that doesn't really match up. But hey, he's still an awesome interview and like just a nutty guy. Guardian of Chaos X, top female talent you would like to interview. I know me, it would definitely be Sunny for sure. I never had her on, would love to interview her. What about you?
Yeah, well, because I know Sunny would get so much hits, I would say yes. She did politely decline to my last interview attempt with her.
Really? Wow. Okay.
But it wouldn't be because I want to talk to her because I find her beautiful or anything like that. It would be just because she's been such a popular topic on this channel that I know people would love to hear from her. And I hope she's well. Although I didn't enjoy when she worked for Great North Wrestling. She was not very fun to be around.
Rob Conway. Have you had on Rob Conway?
No, I'm sure you have, though.
Yes.
You actually had a popular interview on here with Lance Von Erich, by the way, that I'll give a plug to now. It's also on your 2-Man Power Trip podcast, but I wasn't sure what kind of a reaction it would get, but I think it has like 6,000 views on Hannibal TV, and it's an audio interview.
Nice. Yes. Awesome that it's doing well for you. I love it. Lance, super duper rare interview, and I don't think for whatever reason he does video, even though I heard he looks great. So yeah, I don't think he'll do video.
He doesn't do video. He wouldn't do an interview with me, so that's why I reached out to you about getting it on there. But the one good point, and I did listen to that interview, of course, the excellent point that he made in that, which it like set off a light bulb in my head because I just didn't realize it, is like the Von Erichs are the ones that exposed that he wasn't a real Von Erich. And it's like he never really did anything in wrestling after that. And they kind of exposed themselves as frauds when so many people believed in them by their defamatory comments about Lance when they should have just left it alone and said, yeah, he's injured or he's moved on somewhere else. He's wrestling in Japan, something like that, because the internet didn't exist back then. But instead, they wanted to expose that he wasn't a real Von Erich after saying for all this time that he was. So it just made it look ridiculous.
It looked bad on them for sure. Weirzy again saying Danny Doring. Radio says Steve Blackman. Blackman, I've interviewed Doring. Blackman, I would love. That's a rare one. Have you interviewed Steve Blackman?
I got some feedback from him, but he was kind of in the Paul Roma category where the fee that he asked for was just so astronomical for what we make off of interviews and what's possible. I'm still going to work on him. Maybe I can get him to do it at a more reasonable price, but if someone's asking for a fee that you know is going to be a huge loss, you just can't do it. Although I don't put Blackman in the Paul Roma category. I think Blackman is a great martial artist and had more potential than he had the opportunity to display.
Does Kurgan do interviews? Robert Mallet.
He did one with Jacques Rougeau for Jacques Rougeau's podcast recently, and I told Jacques, I said, why on earth, and it was a video interview, did you do that in French? Because he had done some English podcasts, because it's like you're just cutting down the amount of people that are going to watch, because most French people from Quebec speak English. They would have watched it.
Yep.
Like, to do it only in French, it was a little strange, and I don't know. I guess maybe that's going to be a lesson. Same with the George St. Pierre. He told me he forgot to do the GSP one in English, and they just went into it in French. And I'm like, you cut off your market there. And I don't know if he's going to redo his podcast or not. I know he said season 1 is over, but I think if he had English interviews, it would have been more successful.
100% for sure. Del Wilkes, and then he also asks about Duke the Dumpster Joshi. I've had on both those guys. I don't know if you have.
I have too. There's I think I did one of Duke's first interviews. It was an in-person one since he reemerged from his bad days, and it was very detailed. Dale, I did an audio one with. Maybe I would do a video one. Very, very nice guy. I actually felt bad for Dale. And I am on Dale's side on this for Tom Brady masquerading as the Patriots.
Yes.
Like, that is just a load of crap to me, that Tom Brady will come with pictures of Dale and all this and dress up like Dale and take bookings as Dale. But Dale Wilkes was the actual Patriot. It's crazy. He has I guess he has to watch himself, because he did get himself in prison once for past issues that he had. But like, if someone, I guess I have that issue because Dr. Luther claims to be the death dealer, even though I'm the death dealer. But for Dale Wilkes to have to deal with someone saying they were the Patriots, that's just beyond angering. I'd want to kill the person.
Yep. Guardian Chaos says both are great guys. I agree. What about Perry Saturn? Mike S. said. Have you ever had on? I never had on Saturn. Was supposed to, fell through, didn't work out. Have you ever had on Saturn?
He's fell off the radar again. Someone asked Bill Apter about that. Sonny Ono might be able to find him, but I know even Sonny had some trouble tracking him down. He kind of goes through periods where he disappears.
Jesse OG, did you ever have any run-ins or stories with Bruiser Bedlam, aka Johnny K9?
Well, he's passed away now, and he was the few generations before me. So by the time I got into the business, he had moved on to his full-time gang-related stuff, and then he was in prison for, I think, attempting to blow up a police precinct here in Canada. But I understand he was quite a character, to say the least.
What about Brooklyn Brawler from Welcome Back?
He is another guy that's the conversation I had with him, he came off as extremely arrogant. And he said he would not do an interview with me because he felt it would affect his book sales.
Interesting.
Okay. Did you interview him?
Yes, I've interviewed him. He was pretty good. He had a pretty good amount of time. I think it was only maybe 35, 45 minutes, something like that. But he was pretty good. He gave me a lot of good stuff, for sure.
Yeah, I talked to him about both coming into Great North Wrestling and doing an interview at the same time. And strangely enough, he had an issue with, he said, well, am I going to have to put someone over? I guess he feels that he doesn't want to be penciled into that jobber role. So he'd want to win his match and not do an interview. So I'm like, okay, so you want to come in, beat one of my guys, and me pay you a large amount of money to do this, and then not do an interview with me? I don't think really that's going to be beneficial to me. Goodbye.
I agree. Are there any guys you passed on interviewing?
Not that I can recall.
Me neither. I pretty much say yes to everybody if I can. I'll interview anybody. I love doing it. I love the business.
I've had some issues at places like conventions and Cauliflower Alley Club where I'm really busy and people will say, hey, you got to interview this guy. And it's like, oh God, like I've already interviewed so many people, and like I'm rushing to have to get back up to do a shoot, and I've been in positions where like I haven't, and I've had to rush through them and haven't particularly wanted to do them, but I'll do them out of respect for the person. But I don't think I've ever said anyone willing to do one with me. I don't think I've ever said no. There's some people that want to come back on and on and on, and you just don't have the time, and they're not going to have the interest to continuously have on that I've tried to delay or get the message to.
Yep. If he could be serious for a minute, would you interview Lance Storm? Does that interest you? Definitely interests me. I'm interested. Never had him on before. I would love to.
He doesn't want to do one. I guess he's got his deal with Wrestling Observer, and it might be the same thing for John, that because of his affiliation with them, he doesn't want to do any interviews for anyone but them because he's a regular for them. So maybe it could be that. He saved his money well. He made a lot of money. So he also might not want to ruffle feathers, because I'm not known for shying away from some of the more controversial questions.
Yes. How about John Tatum and Rod Price? Both I would love to interview. Rod Price is more accessible. John Tatum is a little bit harder to get a return phone call from. That's what I've noticed.
I've never tried, but I know that John Tatum is elusive.
Yeah. Let's see here. Nunzio, Skull and Eight Ball, a.k.a. the Harris Brothers. I never had them on. Would love to. Nunzio I've interviewed. It was very, very good.
I've tried to get the Harris Brothers, and we could close on this since we hit the 2-hour mark.
Yep.
I got to get out there and run.
Yep.
I would love to get the Harris Brothers because there's a lot of stories involving them. I tried when I was in Nashville because I believe they live in Nashville, and I did not get a response.
Man. Yeah, 2 hours. Got a lot of viewers. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Been awesome stuff. Still have a bunch of good questions on there. Maybe we'll have to do a part 2. Get all these other questions out of the way, because I see a cool Mount Rushmore question. I see Mike Tenay, who I would love to interview out there. Chuck Palumbo. There's a bunch of really good questions out there from the viewers. So I think we might have to do a part 2 and finish the questions, because I'm sure there's much more that I missed and much more that we can get to. But want to mention you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at 2Man Power Trip. Check out my website, tmptempire.com, for all the podcasts and all the latest on the 2Man Power Trip. Got a lot of interviews coming up, a lot of different shows with Dr. Tom, with Justin Credible, with Shane Douglas, with Kevin Sullivan, with Rick Bassman, with Dutch Mantell. So stick around. You will enjoy that. Hannibal, what do you got for plugs?
Well, I would just like to say for that interview tomorrow with Chavo Guerrero and Guy Mesger that Rick is doing,
yep,
there's going to be questions potentially asked by you fans. I think that's at 6 p.m. Eastern tomorrow?
It is at 10 p.m. Eastern.
Oh, 10 p.m. Eastern. So it's going to be your time, fans that are watching now. I suggest you jump on and ask some questions, because I think we got this streaming issue sorted out now for getting Rick's interviews live on the Hannibal TV. And of course, as it says right on the screen, right there, I am on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at the Hannibal TV. I highly encourage all of you to like the Hannibal TV Facebook page. We are streaming our interviews ad-free on there right now and putting up classic The Hannibal TV content. So go to Facebook, click that like button on the Hannibal TV. And if you ask me to follow you back on any of the platforms, I will, but only if you DM me, because there's a hell of a lot of spam out there. And we have a Ted Arcidi interview coming up later this week. Renee Michelle coming up Thursday at 3 p.m. Maybe we'll ask why the hell she's with Drake Maverick, that big crybaby. Just kidding. But lots of great content, even possibly Dutch coming up when he works for Nick later this month. So lots of great interviews coming up. And John, thanks for doing this test with me. I can see the fans appreciated it. So we'll let you close this off.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Really appreciate everybody tuning in. We're going to have to do part 2, I think. So thank you, everybody. Have a good one. See you around, folks.